There have been a wide range of products and services created just for retirees. In other words, companies love to make money off of retirees, and they'll come up with products and services to sell to them. Think about specialized travel services, insurance policies, medical and safety products, educational programs, phones and computers, specifically for elderly, as well as new types of housing or living arrangements. All these things have been developed over the past 20, 30 years, specifically for the retirement market. If you're like most professionals and executives, your career has had its inevitable ups and downs, challenges, low points, high points, right? We all go through that. But work has also supported and nourished you over the last decades. There are significant benefits that we get out of working that are beyond just the paycheck. What are some of these benefits that we get out of working? Well, number one, financial compensation, of course. How you'll earn money, how you'll put food on the table, how you take care of your family. That is clearly a benefit of working. Number two, time management. It gives you something to occupy your time, to feel like you're engaged and doing important things. Number three is a sense of purpose, gives you meaning, makes you feel like you're contributing something. Number four, status or prestige, being seen as someone important, someone who is reliable and responsible. It lets you afford nice things so you can have a sense of prestige and success. Number five, socialization. Who you spend your days with, social interaction, relationships, fitting into a context socially. These are all extremely important benefits that we get from our careers. So the question obviously is, what happens when you stop working in your full-time regular career? Do these factors simply disappear? Do you suddenly stop needing them or benefiting from these factors? No, of course not. The question then becomes, how will you replace these sources of benefit? They don't just go away. You have to find other outlets, other sources to gain these benefits. So how will you replace them? So there certainly are ways to continue enjoying these benefits, but it will require a lot of forethought and planning. In some cases, you can get professional help, coaching, support. You can go to seminars, you can read books, you can look at videos online. But as the advertisement used to say, don't try this at home. This is complex. It's not easy to make all these internal changes alone. It's very important to think about how you replace these items, what kind of support you're going to need, and how you're going to shape that future called retirement. One of the most important benefits of your career is that it has provided you with an identity. You know where you fit into the grand scheme of things, which probably also gives you a sense of personal or psychological security. If you don't believe me, look at someone who suddenly lost their job and who was very tied into their career, and then talk to them a week later. See where they are psychologically. For most people, this sense of identity, fitting in, having a place to go, knowing where you fit, sense of personal, all this stuff is very real in our society and a very strong psychological component. Now, in retirement, you need to replace or at least reorient where you get this sense of identity from. Basically, the source will need to shift from external to internal. External is your work experience. Internal is your personal experience. This takes thought. It takes planning. You have to go in with your eyes wide open. Psychologically, you'll need to identify less with your work, less with your career. You'll have to separate your self-worth from your career role. Separate your self-worth from your career role. We have here today talked about people we know whose identity was completely interwoven and defined by their job. They were their job was them. That's a very dangerous setup, and it can lead to disaster. Mm-hmm. And yet, it's very, very, very common in our society. So this concept of replacing work identity is extremely challenging for many new retirees. Most executives are fully unprepared because their career has consumed so much of their time and attention. One effective coping strategy is to experience a sort of practice retirement. For example, some people have a break from work, maybe because of health issue, or a sabbatical, or maternity leave. All these things can be important. Even a layoff. Let's say you're laid off and you spend a year unemployed. That's not necessarily all negative, because one positive aspect is that it gives you a window into what it's like to not be working full time. So this idea of a practice retirement can be healthy. The break, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, can give you some insight and let you experience a little bit of what it's going to be like when you are fully retired. By the way, as you are heading into retirement, one smart thing that some people do is they take a gap year, which means they don't say, all right, well, I stopped working yesterday, now I'm retired, so I have to do my retirement plan. Instead, what they do is they just leave a gap where they just leave 6 months or a year to think, to transition, to do nothing, to not put themselves under any pressure, and to just feel their way and have a good time before they really start implementing their retirement plan. So I'm not saying you should have no retirement plan. I'm saying you can take a gap year where you can enjoy moving from the old into the new. One client told me that an extended layoff that he had was a blessing in disguise, because he said that it gave him a really good idea of what the transition into retirement would feel like. So obviously, people need to deal with this reorientation, the loss of work identity. They can deal with it in many different ways. But if you deal with it properly, I believe that it can be a positive and productive transition.